Welcome to Sex, Love and Science with Lauren Muratore, clinical psychosexual therapist and relationship expert. This podcast explores sexuality, relationships, and the many facets in between, aiming to normalize sexual conversations, issues that we all face. Let's take the taboo out of sexuality and open up the conversations for a better sexual existence. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging.
I've got a fabulous guest here. I've got Viatrix here, and we're going to be talking about play parties. We're going to be talking about workshops, everything to explore sexuality in a shame-free zone, which I think is pretty important. Thank you so much for coming today.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you, Lauren.
Can you tell us a little bit about what got you into hosting parties and workshops?
That's a tricky question. So I was a guest, obviously.
Yes.
So I was having my best fucking life for many years. I kind of stumbled upon the dancing space, 5 rhythms dancing. And now from there, I met some people who were talking about Tantra workshops. And I started attending those parties and eventually found what used to be called Curiosity.
That's right.
And I kind of never went back from that because it was like much more progressive than any other party I know.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And there's a lot of like woo-woo in Tantra spaces, a lot of like gurus, etc. And I just needed to be somewhere a little bit more, I guess, today and now, and free from dogma and kind of not so wrapped up in the fantasy of the, gods and goddesses. And I mean, that's all great. Packaging is great. But sometimes the packaging kind of takes away from the reality of being human and complicated and messy and modern and all of that. Yeah, I started having my best life, and eventually I was thinking, I really need to do this as a job. And there's been opportunities, for a trainer role and for other roles. But then when the business actually went on sale finally, and my other job, my day job, was kind of getting to a place that is really comfortable. I'm actually and achieving a lot, and I don't have to work as hard as before. I thought maybe it's the right time and step into sex work.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Gosh, isn't Melbourne lucky to have you?
Thank you. I mean, I feel really connected with this city, to be honest, because there's this kind of base level of intelligence and culture and taste in the city. And I feel like this event is also part of the Melbourne tapestry that really suits this city. And I feel like custodian in a sense, holding the space.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful way to put it. Now, for those people listening who might not be, who've never heard of Curiosity and what it did, can you kind of give us a little bit of a rundown about, what it represented? I just probably won't do it enough justice because I've sent lots of people to Curiosity, but
thank you.
But if you want to kind of give us a little rundown.
Absolutely. So I guess the need came from what was needed in the world. So there are a lot of sex events out there, but usually, people turn up, do what they need to do, and then leave. There's not a real kind of community vibe around it. On the other side of the spectrum, there might be like extremely safe spaces that, you can practice like really low intensity, low risk activities and then go home and go and find other spaces. But Roger, who found Curiosity, they kind of came from a sex work and counseling perspective of like, what would be the safety foundation to bring people together and give them some skills and then let them play and build a community around it. And there are also, lots of pressures to be a business operator or a leader in this space, because when you start talking about community, it can start to think like, is this like a community-run, community-owned place? No, it is a private practice at the end of the day, but with a lot of community development values in place. And we have, I guess, one of the distinction of it is it's very structured. There's a shared social code. There are lots of like shared language that we workshop with people around 8 hours in total before and after their party.
Yep.
So there's a lot of kind of unpacking going on. There's a lot of debriefing going on and reflection. So it's like a very conscious sex space.
Yeah, so it sounds like what you're explaining, people are really learning about their sexuality, their experience, and they're kind of putting their pieces together in a very conscious way.
Absolutely. I mean, we are all doing it. I'm not a teacher or a guru. I mean, I have a packaging of information that I impart to people, but at the end, we are all peers, learning together, experimenting together. We are looking to always bring people who have done some of the work. So they've done some of the reflections. They've done some of the maybe, counseling.
Yeah.
Some of the reading, some of the listening. And now they're like, you know what? I'm really ready to experiment. So those are people usually. Although we might also get interest from people who are like, I'm terrified. I want to do this, but I'm terrified. And usually, without becoming public service, we try to help them, triage to somewhere else. I'm like, hey, try this maybe and come back to us in a few months next year. And no need to pressure yourself.
That's awesome. I really like how you are how you look out for people, and you also kind of describe the ideal demographic. So anybody listening who's done a bit of work on themselves, who's ready to take that plunge, experimental, either solo or as a couple or a throuple or whatever relationship dynamic they're in, they could then come to you.
Absolutely. I mean, we're very poly-friendly, couples-friendly as well. But obviously, people who are comfortable with experimenting in a space where other people are also experimenting is important.
Now, can I pause you there?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you're saying experimenting, my mind can think about a million different...
Could you tell me a few of those things, please?
Well, I just want to jump on the page with you to make sure. Well, experimenting can be anything from like wax play to
yes,
BDSM sort of thing.
Yummy.
Like impact play.
Yes, please.
It could be. It could be threesomes, foursomes,
moresomes.
Exactly. So really experimenting, I interpret that as anything.
Absolutely. I mean, anything as long as it doesn't put other people at risk.
Clear. Yep. And it's consensual.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have guidelines for people. We are trying to kind of create a framing around it. So what can be experimented with is, anything that is not going to put anyone else at risk physically. And sometimes that age is really hard to define, and that's a conversation. And because we are creating the container for people to come and have their experiments, we'll give them some very basic framing, and then they essentially create the party. So people bring scenes. For example, at the beginning of each party, you'll see 30, sometimes 40 people talking on a microphone and say what they're here to offer.
Wow.
And it might be something as playful as, hey, it's my birthday. I brought this cake, so I'm going to lay it on my naked body and I'm inviting people to eat it off me. Or it could be something like, I'll be blindfolded and I want people to touch me, but this person is going to keep me safe. And there are some rules they will negotiate with you. So,
wow.
Yeah.
My birthday's next month. So, I might have to bring a birthday cake.
It's a sign. And, every time, I guess, witnessing someone announce their first scene.
Yep.
Such a vulnerable moment because you don't know how people will react. And usually they are reacting with a thunderous applause and cheer. But it's always vulnerable to ask for what you want.
It is. And that's, I think, from a clinical perspective, I think one of the hardest things for everyone to really learn is how to ask for what you want. The other thing that I find really interesting, though, is like I know when I've, experimented and I've lived my colorful life, that you don't always know what you want straight away.
Exactly.
Sometimes you go into a space and then it's the vibe of the people or who you meet. And then all of a sudden you might go in thinking you want something, but all of a sudden you go, oh, no, I want this instead.
Yes.
Right?
And I feel like those are the best times. I mean, the scenes are fantastic and I loved running scenes and I love the psychodrama. And preparedness of an event. And sometimes the anticipation of that event is as much erotic and fun as maybe even more so than the actual having the time.
Yeah, okay.
So when there was, complicated scenes, we might group on Zoom and have a Zoom call.
Okay, really?
And like create some list and preparations, character development, and come together maybe 2 months later.
Wow.
After, hours and hours of thinking and writing backstories and so on. And you have the scene and it's like really great and satisfying, but you realize the journey to come to that was actually extremely pleasurable.
Yeah.
Coming together and talking and disclosing, some of your anxieties around something, some of your desires around something, and people's reactions and how they hold space for you. That's erotic.
That is. Oh, I love that.
And but on the other side, you just kind of show up to a party, you have no plans. You have some ideas and someone says or shows you something and you go like, this is what I need right now. And you're just in the flow state. So you're going from one experience to another. Maybe you're doing some journaling, having some tea after and kind of high possibilities and low expectations really. And just showing up.
Yeah. Do you know, I really love what you said about how it can be erotic just putting your desires and your ideas out there. Like they don't even have to come to fruition, but it's the planning. I think that would be really important for people listening who would say, I would never go to a play party. But that's still a beautiful thing to take away. And if you're in a relationship to implement that sharing and being vulnerable and like sharing that eroticism is pretty hot and sexy. And if you're keeping that to yourself, you could be doing your relationship or self a disservice.
Absolutely. I mean, part of it really, I feel like most people are there for being in a sex positive environment. And it doesn't mean pressure to play.
Yeah.
Or, pressure to do things that you're not comfortable with, you're not ready for. But I think being present to yourself and being present to your relationship, to getting to know each other more intimately, to getting to know yourself more intimately, to admit that to yourself, to say it out loud. So these are really just, I think, big liberators for a person.
Wow. How cool. Now, I guess it can also, like, not anybody off the street can just walk into a play party.
No, we'll tackle them on the street.
So can you explain to us kind of the process? So if somebody's listening and is interested and is like, I think this sounds like me. How do they go about going through this process?
Absolutely. So, we have a public-facing website, and people will be finding that website through friends or through the internet.
Will you share it with me and I could put it in the show notes?
Absolutely. Okay. So it's luwo.com.au. That's for Luscious workshops. And people come and find the workshop and it's all explained there, what we're about, what the events are about, how many people, the dates and so on. And then if people find what they read quite resonant, there's a button to come to our private social media platform.
Okay.
That is hosted in a GDPR compliant, secure, password protected, not public space, and they create a profile there where they can actually access the workshops. there are some questions to, I guess, prompt some answers from people where they are at, how ready they are, and what they written there sounds like, they're ready and they're going to have a great time. We approve them, they're in the system, book their workshop, come to the party, book a second workshop that is much shorter, much cheaper, much less, I guess, challenging than the first workshop in a lot of sense, especially for new people around culture. So we want to bring everyone together culturally because, the general internet at the moment is not the most life-giving erotic space. It's full of just, fretting and bots and toxic people and so on. So we have an ad-free space where people share a social code together to hold each other safely. And we have, moderation, technological moderation, people moderation, and so on to help them diffuse conflict and resolve conflict together. And they can engage there with other people. And after they finish their second workshop, they become a full member and come to the parties, come to the socials, come to some free events we run here and there. We got some also random, not random, but kind of random. So we've got some creative advanced workshops. So things like Forest, you might have heard before.
I've heard of that, yeah.
And we are developing some new content with some sex bot people and sex workers and yeah, so there's a bit of a process, but it's very worth it, I think, for us as well, as space holders, because it's loaded, because sex is great, pleasure is great, eroticism is great, but these are all very loaded subjects for people.
That's a good point.
And there's lots of
jobs.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's, out there's suppression, there's trauma, there is regulation. The state even wants the people.
Well, let's not get started on that.
Exactly. The world is wild. So like what we're dealing, I think, together, what we're dealing is can be a garden that you're walking and living your best life, but it can also be a nightmare that you're, the worst fears of you can come up and you might start projecting your fears onto other people. So we want to have a very accepting, welcoming, inclusive space for everyone.
Yeah. And I think that's the key point. And we spoke on the phone, I think, ages ago. And I loved how you spoke about how inclusive it is. And just people from every sexuality, walk of life is included and able to come and join in.
Absolutely. I mean, there are a lot of, I think, sex events or sex on premises events that are catering to, on the one hand, to the most, cis het part of the spectrum. And they're also thunderously queer and very little tolerance for anything but queer experiences.
Yep.
So this is a pretty unique space that we're kind of bringing all these communities together, kink, queer, cis, het, trans, people with intersex variations.
Absolutely. And every ability and every neurodivergence and neurotypical, I'd imagine, and just how humanity is diverse.
Absolutely. With caveats. So with caveats, I guess, the caveat is this experience going to be a risk for the person? Are they ready? And is this going to, if their attendance going to be a risk to another person, another member? That's kind of the bar, really. As long as people have done some of the work and they can actually navigate this, complex psychosocial space, and then they're welcome.
Okay. So the workshop that you have to do a workshop initially, and then you're invited to the play space. Tell me, how long is that workshop, and what would somebody learn?
Yeah, so the first one is 5 hours long.
Wow. Intense.
I know. And I'm so looking forward to cutting it down. And I delivered a couple with Rog in the past 3 months, and And I just came to the conclusion, damn, I can't really cut a lot from this.
It makes sense.
It does make sense. And to be honest, if I could observe people have energy to do more after 5 hours, but it's a big day because, it's transformative.
Yeah.
And, for some people who are like extremely sexually liberated, they might be coming from Europe and they had, other similar level experiences, or they are sex bod themselves. They might like just kind of walk through it and it's great. But for most people, it presents a level of, I guess, learning and growth and challenge.
Yeah.
And after 5 hours, you can see that people are like extremely happy, extremely activated, extremely tired. They're ready to go home and have a tea and do some journaling or a bath or just, being under a blanket. So in this 5 hours, we give people some theory, some practice, some engagement. They just do all the exercises to their comfort level. But it's also, I guess, an observation for us to see, what their comfort level is, and can we have a chat with them if none of the things are comfortable for them.
Yeah.
But what we design here is not, there's no sex or anything. There's no nudity unless, the person wants to maybe drop off some layers towards the end, but it's in a very contained, very a safely designed space. But, I keep saying safe, but like, it's a safer place. No place is ever 100% safe. So we just kind of here are all the safety things we're doing. And if you follow them and do them to the level that you are comfortable with and take what you want and not take us as gurus or, teachers, but peers, and then you'll be safe. And it might be something like putting a harness on another person that you haven't met before. So it's a complex thing to negotiate together and make sure that, you're holding their body respectfully. You're holding space for, some of their anxiety in that moment. They might not have ever played with bondage. But also, practicing things like a clear no, saying no to people.
Yeah,
practicing your boundaries, because once we know how to say no, that kind of really elevates us to be able to say a very clear yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we teach people some safe words, traffic light systems, some other yummy juicy stuff.
It just sounds like almost like an advanced therapy session, right?
I mean, if that's what people take away from it, yes. I guess to me is like, let's say if the world was perfect.
Okay.
Maybe it is, right?
Okay, sure, yep.
Let's say for a moment the world is perfect.
Sure.
So it's just holding this immense complexity of things with all these like really dark stuff and really bright and beautiful stuff. And we are just living on this planet and we are just very conscious of what we are, who we are as, beings, as part of the universe. And we don't have any to-do list this morning. What do we do? Like we play. We play. And so it's a liberated play space, and it can be extremely therapeutic.
Yeah.
It can be fun, it can be light, it can be hot and heavy. I think, it's not about what we want them to have, is what they bring with them to have.
100%.
Yeah, if they want to receive therapeutic outcomes, I think they're primed themselves to that. And if they just want to, flirt and giggle and roll on the floor with someone, that's what they have.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I guess part of that's knowing yourself and, I guess having that ability to feel yes or no, as you were just saying, which isn't always easy. It sounds like the workshops are really great way to prep people for these parties, especially if that's something people haven't experienced, which I really admire. So once they've done the workshop, they're invited. They can do any party that they like by the sounds
They
of it.
can just do one party after that.
Yeah, just one.
Just one.
Okay.
I mean, you know, we're not the pleasure police. So if they go like, I had one, but I'm not so sure, can I have another one? They can have another one, fine. But we want them to do the cultural workshop soon after their first or second party, to bring them together in language, in the use of our platform, in the way that we expect them to hold each other safely, hold us safely, because it's not easy. And, you know, we will always support them when they have conflicts or misunderstanding. And often, you know, things can go slightly awry when you're actually trying to do something complex with people that is attached to your most essential being and desires and fears and anxieties.
True.
You know, you negotiated to do something and it just slightly went this way. It didn't feel quite right. And they reach out to us and we hold them safely. And then we talk to them individually. We might bring them together. I might do a call to another practitioner, to the ethics center, to someone else to bring some resolution. And so that is one end of the actual experiences in the physical space. But the other thing is, you know, someone might be extremely articulate about the contemporary gender language, for example, and another person might be just starting out and they might say slightly the wrong thing. So we can give them all the language skills and some guidelines, but for us, the most important thing is people are doing their best to do something right and listen. And we don't want to, for example, witness people having these like very big arguments about everything wrong in the world and, you know, shaming people for who they are, whether because they are extremely diverse or whether because they're extremely vanilla. We don't want people to shame each other. And in social media, I think collectively, everyone has been conditioned over the years to be the most sensational, I can't even speak. So,
I get
you know, the most outrageous sounds that will get the most reactions. And I think, you know, to undo that, we need to use platforms that don't actually reward that kind of behavior.
Yes.
But we also need to remind ourselves is like, what is the behavior that when someone says something I don't quite like? Because shaming them, you know, under a post and getting a reply to just kind of punish them collectively is not going to help.
No.
Yes. Or, you know, assuming that, you know, someone said something to me and I'm just going to repeat that is not going to help either. So we want to have a level of transparency and communication between people, level of respect between people, and moving from the, you know, commercial, we're going to sell your data type of social networks into a completely private ad-free network. There's that transition piece.
Yeah, okay.
And to keep each other safe, we give them, you know, here's an example of, you know, what can be great. Here's an example of what can be really yuck. And we want to make sure that, you know, we collectively behave on this quadrant and keeping each other safe online and offline.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
Hey.
So it's a process, and the second workshop is that 5 hours as well?
No, that's just about 3 hours and online.
Online.
Yeah, and less kind of participation. There's some like conversation between people in small groups and so on, but faster, easier.
And so it sounds like this is really targeted for people who are ready to go on that sexual journey, to evolve, to, you know, to be able to have that safe space to explore themselves. And I just think it's fantastic. I mean, there is effort involved, which I think
yes,
because not just anybody's gonna, I guess, want to do that, which I guess weeds out the people who are going to be coming anyway.
Yeah, I mean, The only people we want to weed out is that if they are actually coming with ill intent.
Correct.
If they are coming with assumptions that they know already everything.
Yep.
Because, they are this guru or this, BDSM dom or someone, but we don't want to see people, I guess, assume they know everything. We want to bring people who have enough curiosity.
Yep.
Yes, who have enough, I guess, openness to, growth and change. We also don't want to bring people who might actually get re-traumatized.
Yeah, that's a fair
because, their trauma is extremely complex and they haven't had a chance to work on it just yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't say weed out because it sounds like, we're discarding them, but it's just more like,
no.
Hey, maybe not just quite yet.
Well, I was just picturing people who might really, might look at all of the different sex parties across Australia, and they're advertised everywhere on like Red Hot Pie and, for example, like very mainstream places. So if somebody's, might be attending, I don't know, Saints and Sinners in this place and that, right, to think that they could just walk into your space that's not possible, which I guess that's what I was kind of saying.
Yeah, I mean, those spaces I think are fantastic.
Yeah.
Saints and Sinner, Bertrand Weiss, between friends, all the SOPV venues around Melbourne. I mean, how lucky we are to live in this city.
We do have a fair bit. I think we could use a couple more.
Such a menu. Absolutely. I mean, that's what I'm kind of working towards, to a permanent space. Yeah. I think there is enough need for pleasure in this world for all of us to exist together. And I often feel extremely happy when people are saying, we're going to this party. I'm like, have fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great that I can also just go there without being a space holder and have my own. Exactly. So I'm extremely grateful for those spaces. And by no means I'm kind of, disregarding the importance of those spaces. But what I'm trying to come to, I think, is it is not a purely commercial space. It's a collective.
Yes.
Most people know each other. While having said that, without the clique, sometimes you would see in a commercial space, there might be people kind of, we only vibe together.
Yeah.
So we don't have that. The difference is, it's quite egalitarian. It's quite open. It brings a certain type of energy that is, curious to experiment beyond their socialization, curious to experiment beyond their otherwise social standing.
Yeah.
I think it is a inherently working class space in a lot of sense, because we're not kind of pushing off this experience to people, but we're bringing them in to do some of the work with us.
Yes.
They bring the energy, they bring the offerings, they bring the creativity. Sometimes people bring their own sex furniture. Someone is going to be bringing their queening chair this Saturday. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, these sound amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today.
My absolute pleasure. I had such a great time, Lauren. Thank you.
It just sounds so, these sounds so fun. And I really hope that more people can get involved and get curious and then just embrace what they really want to. It's just, why not?
Absolutely. Come on, live your best fucking life.
And I think that's the best way to end today's episode, is just live your best fucking life.
Yeah. Don't wait.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren.